Good evening, and welcome to The Reel. I'm your host, Tim Pratt, and I love animated films. I've been on an animated film kick recently, watching old movies I saw as a kid to see if they hold up the same as an adult. One of those movies is Happy Feet. Now, Happy Feet was released in 2006 and was produced by George Miller. It stars the voices of Robin Williams, Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, Hugo Weaving, and Elijah Wood, Frodo from Lord of the Rings, one of my personal favorites. Happy Feet came out alongside classic animated films like Cars, Flushed Away, Over the Hedge, Curious George, Barnyard, and The Wild. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia surrounding this film because I saw it in theaters as a kid, but I don't think I can do this review on my own. John and Mary, come on in. Hey guys, what's up?
What's up?
I have my two friends, John and Mary, here to help me, so let's just get right into it. So, Happy Feet starts off in space. It really gives off a cosmos vibe, like this film could be set anywhere, endless possibilities. Then it zooms in past the sun and goes to Antarctica, where we meet the penguins. The world of Happy Feet can be best described as Glee, but with penguins.
Yes, definitely.
You can imagine that.
Yeah.
The entire societal structure is based on who can sing the loudest. Okay, now you two are a couple. The male emperor penguins attract females with a heart song, and then they make a baby. Since this is Penguin Glee, we can't not talk about music. John?
So, in the beginning of the movie, you mentioned the scene that starts in outer space. The first line of the movie is a line from the Beatles' Golden Slumbers. I think it's Once There Was a Way to Get Back Homeward or something. And then from then on, just constant pop music that people know. A lot of annoying pop music too, but
Yeah.
to the extent they name characters after musical figures or songs. For example, the main character Mumble, his two parents, they're named Memphis, which is homage to Elvis. His home was in Memphis, and the character is basically Penguin Elvis.
Yeah.
The mother's name is Norma Jean, the real name of Marilyn Monroe. And at one point, the father says, "Goodbye, Norma Jean," which is a reference to Elton John's Candle in the Wind. The first lyric in that song is "Goodbye, Norma Jean." So this movie really just hits you over the head with music reference after music reference from the jump. In the outer space scene before we see a bunch of penguin singing Glee. Yeah.
A lot of the music in this film is from the Beach Boys, Prince, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Queen, a little bit of Frank Sinatra. Speaking of Glee, the No Scrubs, the song by TLC in this movie, is actually sung by the Glee cast.
Yeah.
Little tidbit.
Of course. Can't
Little
escape it.
nitpick I have with this film, the opening scene where Norma Jean is being courted by like a whole bunch of penguins doesn't make sense, at least because I was under the impression that each penguin had a unique heart song, but now all of them know Prince and are trying to court the same penguin.
Yeah, they join
So,
in.
Yeah.
They join in. They're all singing the same song.
But it just doesn't make sense
doesn't make
because
sense.
all of them are trying to court and they're supposed to have their own specific heart song. Also, the scene itself is like overtly sexual.
Yes. A lot of them are actually.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
One thing I have
For
to
a
get out of
movie
the
about
way
penguins.
is that the whole film is just a parody of March of the Penguins, which is a documentary that came out in 2005. Morgan Freeman narrates that film, does a really great job. And I noticed that Robin Williams imitates that in Happy Feet, which if you can imagine that, it is very comical. He doesn't do Morgan Freeman's, very, slow speech, obviously, because he can't. So this is a whole play on the documentary, March of the Penguins, which I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's more than just like the narrator too. He's like an actual character in the movie. But it's still very like, this is supposed to be similar to Morgan Freeman. Like, it's not just like, oh, we'll have this character do it. We want a low-voiced character to sound like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, and like you said about the low-voiced character that sounds like Morgan Freeman that Robin Williams plays in Happy Feet, it seems very satirical and ridiculous, that character,
Yes.
because it's so dramatic, like it's a spiritual, religious figure.
I feel like the voice of the character, because the narrator is Lovelace, that's the character's name, is his personality is so much different than the voice that he uses to narrate. When he's actually narrating, it doesn't sound like the character doesn't fit.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't fit the character.
It's kind of like in pardon me, this is before Christmas time. It's kind of like in a Frosty the Snowman and Frosty Returns, where the narrator is actually a character, but he sounds different when he's narrating and when he's actually a character in there. I can't remember who he is, but yeah.
He does sound very different.
All right, let's talk about animation. Anyone want to start?
It's creepy.
Yeah.
I could start there.
Yeah.
It's 2006.
I feel like it's 2006, but I feel like that when it's just the penguins, it's not super creepy. But in this later scenes in the movie, when they show the aliens or humans, it's scary. Like it's similar to the animation style of Polar Express, where like it's a little too realistic to be comfortable.
It's giving
I hate
tickets,
it.
please.
It's giving tickets, please. It's giving uncomfortable. It's giving
Monster House.
It's giving. This is a movie about penguins.
It's giving Surf's Up.
Surf's Up is a great movie. I will defend to the day I die that Surf's Up is a great movie.
Over Happy Feet?
Over Happy Feet.
I don't
Any
like
day.
Surf's Up.
Any day, I would rather watch Happy Feet. Wait. Cut that. I didn't mean that. I would rather watch Surf's Up over Happy Feet. Any day. Surf's Up, Green Day the movie with Shia LaBeouf.
Ma'am, you are unfortunately in the wrong place. John, do you have anything to add about the animation?
I mean, the penguin animation's creepy too, because there's certain points, I'm thinking specifically of the Robin Williams penguin, where he'll be talking and the mouth will move up, and you're looking straight down his mouth and nothing else.
Or any moment when Gloria's like belting out a note.
Yeah, it's just this.
It's just like their whole throat. It's gross. Or the scene when Mumble gets bit in the butt by that sea lion. I don't like how I can see like every pore on the sea lion's face. It's really discomforting.
Yeah.
It's really.
The movie's too much for a kid's movie. It's too.
It's for kids.
It's like a nature documentary that was made for kids, and then they just didn't make it for kids.
Yeah, they just didn't make it for kids. They were just like, let's just get Robin Williams, Nicole Kidman, and Hugh Jackman in here and make it for kids.
And it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen.
Since this is a kids film, it's got a plot. Let's talk about that. Mary?
This movie, the plot, I personally feel like there's just different plots within this movie, because the whole movie is supposed to be like about acceptance, like yes, like he's different and you should accept people for who they are, but like he literally has to save their food supply for them to accept the fact that he dances and can't sing. Like what is that? Like they should just accept him for who he is. Like he can't graduate high school because he can't sing. That's like a requirement to graduate the Penguin High School, is you have to be able to sing.
I'm gonna jump in here. So one of my main gripes about this film is the penguins, after Norman Jean and Hugh Jackman do what they did, the penguins all go to singing class and they learn about heart songs, but the teacher expects them to already know how to sing, but they're in class to know how to sing.
Yeah, they're literally like 3 years old too.
Yeah, they're also 3 years old.
Or something, like they're literally kids.
Don't get me wrong, they're all better than I ever will be at singing, but it just doesn't make sense that they already know everything about heart songs, but they're going to the class to learn about them. When the teacher picks out certain kids to sing and they sing a whole song. Like, how have you just came out of an egg, how did you already know how to sing?
The teacher also insinuates that like being good at singing is genetic. Because she literally says at one point, she's like, oh, well, I was expecting Mumble to have a really good singing voice because you two have such lovely voices, and then your kid can't sing. Like,
he's also the only one.
He's also the only one. Because, well, have we talked about why he can't sing? Because his dad drops him as a child on his head. His mom leaves to go fishing and drops him on his head. But there's also another reason that some people could argue of why he can't sing, is because there's a scene where it's a cold night, and then when he gets dropped, right before he gets dropped, the top penguin of like the penguin clan is like, oh, like pray to like the great Gwen, which is like the penguin god, to like give you like a heart soul and like keep you warm and put food in our bellies. But Memphis, his father, doesn't do that. He's too focused on how much he loves Norma Jean. And then he drops the egg, so you could say that he drops the egg and he's not praying hard enough for his son to have a heart song. So that's why Mumble can't sing. He didn't pray hard enough for him.
Yeah, and you said the thing about praying. This movie's really got, and I said this a little bit, but the movie is very uncomfortably spiritual.
Yeah, it's spiritual, but also like there's so many suggestive scenes. Like there's the scene after they graduate from like high school and they jump out of the water. There's like a whole scene of like Mumble and Gloria like being on top of each other.
Yeah.
This is a children's movie about penguins who sing.
And also a bit, I'll talk a little bit uncomfortable with the two parents, penguins. At one point, they refer to each other as mommy and daddy.
Oh, that's so discomforting. Like, because she's like, okay, bye, daddy, I'm gonna go fishing.
Yeah.
Like, ma'am, you're a penguin. Like.
And this predates them having an actual kid.
Yeah. No, they have the egg at this point.
They have the egg.
But it's still like.
Yeah.
It's giving, I hate it.
Yeah.
No. Bad.
Gibby didn't like that.
Real quick.
Gibby didn't like
hate
that.
that.
I hate that, and Gibby didn't like that.
As for more in the plot, it's kind of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So
it takes a turn.
It takes a turn, but Mumble gets kicked out of singing class. He can't graduate high school, which makes no sense.
No sense because he can't sing.
Because he can't even go to he can't even get in High School Musical, because they also have to sing, but they never graduated. That's a story for another day. So. It's very straight. The film's very straightforward. It's a lot of changing. It's a very big changing of the guard plot. Mumble has a quirk which he can't. It means he can't sing, and he just has happy feet. He taps his feet, and then that's his whole thing. The elders push back at him, and then he ends up, changing everything for the better. When he goes on his own Finding Nemo moment, hero's journey, he ends up at a zoo for a few months. And then a little girl's like, "Look, mommy, a penguin.
The penguin can
He's
tap dance.
tap dancing." And
it's a tap dancing penguin.
And then the people at the zoo tag him. They somehow know exactly where he lives.
Yeah.
And then they send him back to Antarctica with cameras. And then he's tap dancing, then all on TV. Somehow scientists and like politicians are like, "Wait a minute, this tap dancing is like, this is revolutionary. This is a cry for help.
Let's save their food chain."
That means we're disrupting their food chain, so it causes them all to pull out, overfishing. All the ships are gone, and then somehow Mumble's one quirk saves everyone.
Yeah.
And I just
for a
I
tap
don't
dancing
like
penguin.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
and also the environmental thing. Like they meant in the first hour of the movie, I timed it. They have one slight hint at any of the environmental stuff.
It's not about the environment. The majority of the movie is about the fact that, he's a penguin who can't sing, and you're supposed to be able to sing, because that's not penguin according to his father. You have to be able to sing.
And then they throw that in.
And then they throw that in because his father is part of the reason that he gets kicked out.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you can't sing, it's not penguin, you need to leave. And then he also doesn't tell the mother until after he was supposed to have graduated high school that he dropped Mumble as an egg. So he's like gaslighting his wife for all these years, and she's like, he's fine. But there's nothing about the environmental stuff until after he leaves.
And the only thing they do at all is the penguin who has like the 6-pack rings around his neck. The Lovelace penguin.
Is the Lovelace penguin.
And then at 75 minutes they show you a construction backhoe floating through the ocean, and then all of a sudden we're in a different movie.
Yeah, all the abandoned equipment from the humans. It's all of a sudden it's a different movie.
Yeah. And that's one thing I'd like to touch on. Humans play a big role in this film, but it's very external to start. So there's a lot of ambiguity around humans created, and it's very, they're like this alien entity. There's a lot of xenophobia around the humans, but then they're directly in the film.
Yeah.
And I don't like that because it really plays a big part in the ending, because I would rather have, instead of the ending happening, I'd rather have Mumble have just changed the whole societal structure of the Penguin Nation, and then they end the movie, because the ending just removes the ambiguity of the humans they created before and makes them really a part of the movie. And John, I think you want to touch on something about the ending.
About the end? Oh, yeah. I mean, the ending, it just kind of stops.
Yeah.
It goes from the last 25 minutes of the movie. He's in the ocean, he's in a zoo, he shows up randomly back where he's from. They have no idea where he's from, and somehow he winds up there. And then the movie just kind of ends because he can tap dance.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and it's like, how did you what is like?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It just end. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
And it's the last 25 minutes of the movie is like the actual plot of the movie, which is like, oh, like we don't have any fish because, okay, and then they blame the fact that they don't have fish on the tap dancing penguin, because that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they didn't pray hard enough for him, and then he
Right.
got dropped on his head.
I'm going to go on a little tangent here about one of the themes. We're going to talk about penguin racism. All the emperor penguins in the film look the same. They got the yellow color around the neckline, a very smooth, sleek body, except for Mumble. But Mumble, in addition to having his little tap dance quirk, he's still got his baby feathers as an adult. I think it was very smart of the animators to make Mumble different visually and lightly touch on the issue of race. It's a stretch, but it's most definitely like an allegory for racism. That's honestly probably why the penguins of Madagascar left Antarctica, and you honestly can't blame them there.
I mean, I think one of the reasons that they probably made Mumble look different is so that way, like, and there's scenes of them, like, and like, again, after the high school graduation, it's them swimming. So you can easily pick out which penguins Mumble. Which, like, makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, you gotta show these different.
All right, now it's time for our scores. I will start first. I give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. It's not the best thing. I still have fond memories about it. It's really awkward, very sexual. The animation is very good for 2006. I love the bright colors. It feels like even though you're in Antarctica and all the color scheme is the same, you can pick out every detail in the ice, on the penguins. It's really great. And I think the plot is driven well, except for the ending, which is where I knock off a couple points. Your scores?
So I would have given it a 7 or an 8 out of 10 before I rewatched it for this. And now I would say because the plot is so all over the place and it's slow and then it's fast and then it's just nowhere. Looking at it now that I understand the movie more or are able to understand it more, I'd have to say I give it a 5 out of 10.
Mary?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with John. I'm gonna give this movie like a 5 out of 10 because I rewatched this movie. I probably would have been on the same page as you, giving it like a 7 or 8 before. But then after rewatching this movie, I realized how much I dislike Mumble's father for dropping him as an egg and then just like gaslighting his wife and not telling him how oddly sexual it is for a children's movie. But it does. The animation for 2006 is very, very good. But my main reason for giving it a 5 is how at the end of the movie, Mumble starts to shed his baby feathers. But then in Happy Feet 2,
they're back.
They're back. He looks the same as he did for the entirety of Happy Feet 1. So all of the character development that he went through, it doesn't matter. So actually 4.
Oh,
4 out of 10.
Tough critic.
And
4 out of 10.
For what it's
For
worth,
continuity reasons, I give this movie a 4 out of 10. Actually, I would give Happy Feet 2 a 4 out of 10. Happy Feet, the first one, can stay at a 5.
and for what it's worth, Happy Feet 2 doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but at the same,
Unfortunately, it exists still.
it's still a movie. And honestly, the way that it abruptly ends, like John said, the way that the first movie abruptly ends, they didn't need a sequel.
Nope.
They didn't, like, you could have stopped there, but how would they make more money?
They didn't. The second one bombed.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for now. Thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you on the B-side for our next review.